Well, at a time when the hospitality sector, particularly in our major CBD areas, are under enormous pressure because of the coronavirus, leading chefs and entrepreneurs like Luke Mangan and others are actually out there asking for governments to try and think outside the square and come up with something that could help these really important areas of the economy. Luke, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Pete.
All right, Luke, let's start off with some basic questions so people understand the magnitude of the problems. What did your business look like before the coronavirus?
We were in pretty good shape. We were doing cruise ships, airlines, restaurants in hotels. So we were in a good spot. But obviously I hit the trifecta there with cruise ships, airlines and restaurants in hotels, etc. So we're about 95% down.
Yeah, that is absolutely huge. And what chunk of your business was in the CBD, either of Sydney or any other city, and how have they been affected?
Well, we've got Glass restaurant in the Sydney Hilton. We were a 7-day-a-week operation, 10 mil a year turnover. And now we're back to just doing a Friday lunch, Friday dinner and Saturday night. Now, the CBD, as you probably know, is still pretty quiet. Although I must admit, in the last few days, it's picked up. I guess the sun's shining, the zero counts with COVID coming up, which is great. So the lunch trade on a Friday is okay. Where we used to do about 150, 160 for lunch, we're probably doing about 85, 90. And that's with, the 4 by square metre rule.
Okay, so how important were overseas tourists to your Sydney CBD business?
Well, very much. I mean, the hotel was full with hotel guests, 600 rooms above, even coming from interstate as well. Now, obviously, that's all blocked off with Victoria and Queensland, etc. No international travel there. So, look, the hotel was about 20% of our market share coming in through the hotel that we know of that was recorded. And the rest was business lunches and things like that and locals.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask that question. You've talked about the interstate type people staying in the hotel using your restaurant, but business people, business people who are in the CBD of Sydney, they're the people who are really missing in action as well, aren't they?
Certainly are. Look, if you look at even the government, state government, they've got about 10% of their workers back in the office. Citibank, 20%. So we've got real concerns there. And I think once they start coming back in, things aren't going to change.
How have you pivoted in your own business to cope with this period?
Well, I mean, there's not a lot we could do. You've probably seen and heard a lot of restaurants doing takeout and things like that. We did that later on, but we didn't want to compromise on the quality of our food and serve restaurant food in takeaway containers and have it served cold and things like that. So we stuck with frozen sort of pies, reheat meals that could be reheated and recooked. So, and that went quite well, but it's certainly a business that cannot be, you can't sustain, I think.
Yeah. All right, so I was pleased to hear that the Sydney Council and the state government got together with a bunch of people like yourself, Neil Perry, Justin Hems, and what came out of those discussions?
Well, that was the Sydney Summer, the Summer Summit. Yeah. About 2 weeks ago, I had lunch with Dominic Perrottet in Sydney, and we spoke about things like FBT and payroll tax and things like that to help struggling businesses, not only in the city, but the small cafes and wine bars around the country. And he was very positive, and I was quite pleased with his comments and what he may take to the federal government. Yeah. So out of that summit came lots of things. As you know, there's all these red tapes with cafes. I'm saying, let's open the city up. Let's get the arts back out there. Let cafes, wine bars, restaurants put tables and chairs in the streets in a safe environment, obviously law-abiding. But there's all this red tape, Pete, where it can take up to 2 to 3 months to get your application through. There's a charge per table. There's a charge per chair, which is absolutely ridiculous. And all these small businesses need all the help they can get now, because I tell you, when JobKeeper finishes, JobSeeker finishes, when rent relief comes in, mortgage relief is finished, there's going to be a few problems.
Okay, so what has been the reaction from people like Clover Moore? Because the Sydney City Council would be responsible for tables and chairs on streets, I presume, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're right. But Dominic Perrottet was in that meeting with Clover as well. We all got together around the table and we spoke about it. Now, the good thing here is government are working with councils, and it's very interesting. Minister Dominello, who I've met several times, is very much behind these ideas and these plans. And in the meetings I've been in, he's been pushing very hard to make this happen. And I think we'll have an announcement in the next 2 weeks of what will happen.
Okay, so what about the really thorny subject for Perrottet, the New South Wales Treasurer, around giving you a holiday from payroll tax? It is 30% of his revenue.
Well, it's interesting. It was brought up at our meeting. It was dodged a bit to federal government, but I noticed last night in an interview I was doing with the Prime Minister that he dodged it back to state government. So it's quite interesting how it gets thrown around. Yeah. Payroll tax and FBT, they're certainly on our radar. These will help. And I'm not sure if we just focus it on small business in restaurants, wine bars and cafes and just in the CBD or something like that to help them get over this hump and waiting until people get back into the city. I think it's on their agenda. I think payroll tax needs to be done because if they want, as the Prime Minister keeps saying, jobs, well, let us help you. So help us to help you and get rid of that. Abolish payroll tax. Yes, as you say, it is 30% of revenue, but as restaurants and the hospitality business have done since March, they've pivoted. So let's see the government pivot a bit more and try and get some revenue elsewhere.
Yeah, certainly I can see a solid argument for giving a payroll tax holiday for a period of time until the economy gets back to normal. And secondly, doing it for certain regions. And the region is CBD in this case. Some areas won't need any help on payroll tax, but certainly we know the CBD does. What about the idea, like FBT, for example, is only 1% of the federal government's revenue?
Amazing.
Did the Prime Minister give you an idea that he was at least considering it?
Well, his comments were, I think the general public will see people going out for boozy lunches and long lunches again. And he sort of brushed it off, which is quite strange. My point with all that is, listen, we want people back out for lunch, having long lunches, doing deals over wine, good food, celebrating what this great city and alone this great country has to offer with great chefs and great food.
What do you think about the idea of vouchers? Tasmania tried it and only allocated $7.5 million for people to go touring within the state of Tasmania. $100 a night for accommodation, a one-off night, $50 for an experience, and it sold out in 40 minutes.
Yeah, incredible. And it was done in the UK as well, back a while ago, to give $50 vouchers to go into a restaurant. And we know, as restaurateurs and chefs, that if someone's coming in with a free voucher of $50 a head or something, we know they're obviously going to probably spend $75 or even $100 a head. So that's really going to generate revenue. And just remember, that revenue generates revenue for the government with GST. Exactly
right. So what's your feeling, Luke? I know you told me that Clover Moore said something will happen by November. When do you think you actually hear about what might go on in November?
I think we've got, in the next 2 weeks, we're going to hear something from Minister Dominello, who's been behind this. In about 2 weeks, we're going to hear something about outside dining. Payroll tax and FBT, we're obviously here in the budget, what comes out of that. And I really think the amount of noise we've been making since March, that something will happen. Look, Clover Moore is all about opening the city up, which is great, but what they've got to do is just cut this red tape.
Exactly right. Luke Mangan, and I should actually say one thing. You also have opened up another restaurant outside the CBD. How's that doing compared to your salt?
Look, very much well. We're in the suburbs, Waterloo, Luke's Kitchen. So we're doing 3 nights a week where we used to do 7 nights a week. Business is good, and I think that's where people are sort of looking at, eating in the suburbs, keeping local, and that's great. And I think if all Australians can do that, and especially, when Victoria opens up, I really feel for what's happening down there in Victoria within our hospitality business.
Yeah.
What he's doing down there is telling them they can only eat outside. I mean, seriously, with that climate, not great.
Yeah, that's right. Particularly when you realise you get 4 seasons in one day in Melbourne. That's very, very hard. Luke Mangan, thanks for joining us and good luck, and we'll keep following up.
Thanks very much, Pete.